why is God in a category where we can't use the same reasons?
Right, because it's not an evidence-based proposition. Because it's not an evidence-based proposition.
Because it's not an evidence-based proposition.
Because it's not an evidence-based proposition.
John Lee, right? Wasn't I? You want to hear it? Still?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, if you could play him play the quote where he says, "The proposition is not evidence-based," I believe is the direct quote.
Evidence like that. But for those interested in evidence for God, why is it not the case? If in fact, there is evidence for God.
I'm saying, yes, there is evidence for theism,
okay.
Certainly.
If there is evidence for God, why is it that the evidence is not a justification for believing?
Well, I mean, believe in God and go to hell. I mean, so what is the
John,
value of that?
John, please try to answer the question you're being asked rather than going off on an irrelevant sermon. If in fact there is evidence for God, why is it not the case that belief is then warranted by that evidence?
Belief in theism is warranted by the evidence.
You just said that it was not. You just said that it was a faith-based position.
Tom, I think you played it farther.
And then you said there is evidence, and then now you're saying that the evidence is sufficient to warrant belief.
Well, it would be that as far as like the faith goes, right? The faith in God, it's something that's given by God. It's not.
No, I'm asking you if it's in. You said it's not an evidence-based proposition. So are you saying there is not evidence for God?
Yeah, Tom, you'd have to back up to his quote.
Well, I think there's evidence for a general revelation of God, certainly.
No.
Right.
What I'm saying is, and pronouns he, him from California says that arguments for God are absolutely worthless. I have my reasons. You can't use my reasons. You need your own. Hey, John, how are you?
Hey, Matt, how are you doing? Hey, Jmike.
I'm all right.
How you doing, John?
Why on earth, if something were true, would you and I believe for different reasons if there were good reasons?
Why would we be? Because we all have individual experiences.
Yeah, but no. What I'm saying is,
what a great answer.
That's not how sound reasoning works. If something is demonstrably true, then the evidence is available to all of us and applies to both of us. So like if smoking cigarettes increases your risk of cancer, the available evidence would be the reason to believe this. If you have a partner that loves you, the available evidence would be the reason to believe this. Why is God in a category where we can't use the same reasons?
Right, because it's not an evidence-based proposition.
Boom!
So you're saying there is no evidence for God?
Well, it would be that as far as like the faith goes, right? The faith in God, it's something that's given by God.
Is that good enough?
Yeah, and then we already played the part where he changed his mind that it was an evidence-based proposition. That's all we needed. And then John wanted to say that when we were talking initially that when I asked him if he made a mistake, because what I said earlier when I came in here was, did you make a mistake?
Yeah, the answer is no.
That's your way out. That was your way out of it. And you were like, nope, let me double down like I do all the time and make myself look dumb like I do all the time. And that's what you did.
Yeah, so are you ready for the explanation now, Jmike?
I mean, you can try. Sure, go ahead.
So, faith in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior is not an evidence-based proposition. However,
hold on. We need to start there. Jesus Christ is not an evidence-based proposition, so there's no reason that justifies believing that proposition. Right?
Jesus.
Right.
Jesus
Hold on. So there's no reason that justifies believing in X, which is that Jesus died for our sins, right?
Evidence is not the only basis by which beliefs are justified. We could talk about epistemic
Hold on.
justification
Hold on, John. Presumably, if you're justifying X, which is that Jesus died, and like if I buy into it, like he washes my sins away. Presumably, like if there's a reason for that, then, or if it's justified to believe that there's a reason, right?
Yes. Once again, in epistemology, evidence is not the only basis by which beliefs are justified.
But you're saying are you saying there's no reason?
You're talking about warrant or justification, are you not?
Yeah, I'm asking you for the reason.
So another, well, yes, the reasons are important. However, evidence is not the only basis by which beliefs are justified. There can be logical reasons, philosophical reasons. It doesn't necessarily have. It could be experiential reasons. It could be a host of reasons to believe. Some reasons are self-evident. Like, for example, the axioms of logic, and so whether someone is justified to believe that the axioms of logic are true are not evidence-based.
Yeah, so I don't have the self-evidence of God, so that can't be true.
I'm just giving an example of propositions that are not necessarily evidence-based, nor
Okay, so then what?
do they
So then
require
what's the?
justification.
So then what? So then instead of bloviating, give me the reason.
Reason for my personal belief that Jesus Christ is God.
The reason people should believe that Jesus died on the cross.
I don't hold the position,
and that the kingdom of heaven wasn't just to be established on
yes,
earth, but
yes.
but that.
Go
ahead.
I don't hold the position that people ought to believe that or should believe that, according to your words.
So so what it means to have the reason is that you ought to believe it, right? Because that thing, like whatever in mind, is going to justify it, but you don't have that thing, therefore there isn't a reason, right? So
right. So once again, I don't hold the position that someone ought to believe in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. I don't hold that. And so if it's the case that I don't believe they ought to believe, why should I try to convince them to believe in something I don't consider that they ought to believe?
All right. Well, what would be the
I can give.
You could point out.
Yeah, I can give you reasons. I can give you reasons why I believe Jmike, right? But once again, the reasons why I believe is not sufficient basis for you to believe. My reasons cannot necessarily be your reasons. That was the whole purpose of the call. And so, Matt Delonte, rather than listen, think about my call, Jmike. My call is: I believe it is worthless to provide evidential reasons for the belief in God, right? In the process,
hang on. It's not an evidence-based proposition.
May I finish, please? Rather than ask me why do you believe it is worthless to give evidence for God, he asked me for evidence of God when I'm telling him that I believe it's worthless to provide. And when I told him that I believe it's worthless, then he hung up on me. Does that make sense?
Hold on. But the idea that you think it's like worthless to give as opposed to the fact whether or not there are reasons to give, right? That's a distinction to be made. Like if you think that there are presumably reasons that justify why Jesus died on the cross and raised. Hold on. It's not. Look, that actually being the state of affairs, right? That actually happened, or like a mind independent, not just like some fact in your head or something, but like some fact out there in the world that actually happened.
A belief is subjective.
I'm talking about why you would be justified to hold a belief.
That's right. The question was not why is it reasonable for me to believe, right? The demand was such that to provide evidence for God so that someone else can believe. I'm not providing reasons why you should believe, Jmike, or that Matt Dillon.
No, you said simplicator, like you said the proposition that God exists is not evidence-based. That had nothing to do with virtue.
That is correct.
Yeah, so that's not in virtue of like the attitudes of some agent. You're saying like across the board, there's like the proposition itself, right, doesn't have reasons that justify belief in the proposition. You just don't realize that that's what the fuck he said.
No, there are two understandings of what he did not even let me explain.
Look, John, you said it. It was said on here, right? You said the proposition. The proposition is look, you take the proposition to be the content, right? It's not merely like the thought in an agent's head. It's the content, right? So hold on. So if the proposition is the content that we're discussing, and that content can be shared between agents, right? All we're referencing is the content among the agents, right? It's not in virtue of what like the propositional attitude that one might have, because what's in question is the content, right? The content is that God exists. That's the proposition. And you're saying that the content of which does not have reasons to believe that it's true, right? You're saying that there shouldn't be reasons that apply to an agent on why they would give the commitment that the proposition is true, right? You just sound like an idiot.
The context of my statement, once again, the proposition of Jesus Christ being God is not evidence-based. However, the proposition, the general revelation of God existing, which is a separate proposition,
is evidence-based. That is what I was not provided the opportunity, and thus making it the pretension that it is some sort of contradictory.
Hold on. So, do you think the proposition, right, that God exists or that Jesus rose from the dead or whatever it is, because it seemingly doesn't matter, is there a reason to justify that proposition being true? Yes or no?
You just gave out a muddled out proposition. There's two separate propositions.
So does God, the one that you called in about, right? It was that God exists, right? So does that proposition have a reason to believe it? Yes or no? Because you said it is not an evidence-based proposition.
Yes.
Which is why I tried to ask you if that was a mistake that you made.
The call I'm talking about is regard to theism, which is the proposition that God exists. Right, which is evidence-based.
Which you said was not evidence-based.
No.
Are you retracting that statement?
No. Once again, the part about my personal belief in Jesus Christ is not evidence-based. That's what I was trying to. That's what I was trying to explain to him.
Okay, so the fact that you have an attitude towards a proposition has no reason to justify why you think the proposition is true. That's what you're saying.
My call was about general theism. Okay, evidence for God, right? That it's worthless for that. Now, my Christianity.
Does anybody else hear what he's doing?
Yeah, my belief in the Christian God is a faith, right? Which is not evidence-based. That's what I was trying to explain to him. My call was not about Christianity. My call was about theism. There is a distinction between Christianity, Christian faith, and
John, what the fuck
did
I just ask you, John? I asked you about the proposition that God exists, which is theism, right?
Right.
And you said that it's not evidence-based.
No.
Right?
So it is evidence-based.
So there's no. Okay, so let's go back. Let's retrack. So then you did make a mistake when you called.
No. What I was referring to
I'm done
what
talking.
I was referring to was
talking. I am done talking to your dishonest ass. I'm done with it. You're a dishonest piece of shit, and you should know that.
Yeah, like I said, I just explained to you. I just explained to you what I was telling you is not evidence-based.
If anyone else wants to talk to him, go ahead, have at it. He's a dishonest piece of shit. It amazes. Hold on. It amazes me that there was 2 million sperm, and John. Think about it. Out of all those sperm, John Lee's the one that won. Think about that for a second. That's incredible. It's fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, I literally delineated what I was talking about, and you want to take little words that were just really cut off, and the context not able to be provided. That's what you're doing. Exactly what Matt's doing, Jmike.
I have a question for you, John.
I mean, it's either the case that you are genuinely interested in what I'm saying. And not only so,
I'm not interested in what you're saying.
Okay, that's fine.
You keep contradicting yourself, and you keep telling me that I called in about this proposition that I say has no reason to believe it, and then now I think that there are reasons, but I just won't actually give the fucking reason on why there is to believe it. There's no reason.
No. I will definitely give you the reason why I personally believe in God, but once again, my reasons to believe in God cannot substitute for your lack of reason.
Darth, go ahead, Matt, because Darth's more interesting. So
all I was saying was. My call, Jmike, was simply why I believe that it's worthless to provide evidence for God, right? Arguments for God. That's the reason for my call. And yet somehow, being that the purpose of my call, you have Matt Dillahunty, rather than saying, why do you believe it's worthless?
Tom, every time he says that, can you replay the clip where he says that the proposition that God exists is not evidence-based? Will you just play that every time he keeps fucking saying that?
Once again, you can repeat it all you want, but once again, he's asking for evidence to a caller who's saying it's worthless to give evidence. That's the irony, Jim.
I'm not talking about Matt. I'm talking about what your dumbass said.
I know what I said, and I can.
I
know exactly what I said.
You do the same thing you do with everything and try to put a Band-Aid on it, and everybody just knows.
And I could explain. If you notice, he cut me off so often, and I even said something like, "If you're not even letting me explain because you're cutting me off and stuff like that."
We're not talking about Matt. Look, we're not talking.
No, I am talking about Matt.
Your proposition that you are that you're saying you didn't make a mistake.
My Christianity is not evidence-based. Is that fair enough? My Christian theism is not evidence-based.
Yeah, there's no reason. Okay, that's fine. So, Darth,
I didn't say no reason. Hang on, sir. Evidence to say that there's no evidence is not to say there's no reason. There can be reason and/or evidence. And so when the person says it's not evidence-based, it is disingenuous to say it is not reason-based. Of course it's reason-based.
Yeah, so, John, is God causally responsible for all events?
In fact, Jmike, the faith is reasonable.
John, wait, John.
But to say so once again, what is common with these Galactists, and I'm surprised you even think this way, Jmike, is that when someone says they don't have evidence for a particular propositional attitude, you think they have no justification, and you also think they have no reason. That's presumptuous, and it's completely false. And these are the reasons why I talk to these Galactists. And I know that a whole audience, that Matt Dillahunty, you yourself are automatically assuming because there's no evidence, there's no justification, nor reasons. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, so, John Lee, is God causally responsible for all events?
Here comes Darth again.
Yeah, so what's the answer?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so what is the question, Darth? Might as well entertain it.
I just posed it to you. Is God causally responsible for all?
Is God causally responsible for all events? Depending on how you understand causally, because there are first and secondary causes.
Why would that matter? Does God foreordain?
Because it matters. It matters because when you look at culpability, responsibility, accountability, does certainly.
I'm not asking you any of that normative bullshit. I'm asking you, does God foreordain all of?
No.
Does God predestine the events of agents?
No.
Sovereign then.
But if the question is, does God foreordain things to come to pass? The answer would be yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
And those are not synonymous statements.
I don't know what comes to pass there. I don't know what comes to pass there has to do with anything. Are all events dependent upon God?
No.
What do you mean no? So you're saying that God isn't sovereign now?
God is certainly sovereign.
In what sense is he sovereign? In I wasn't done talking. How can he be sovereign?
Well, why don't you end your statement with a question? Listen. You ask me a question and then you keep on speaking. Do you notice that? If you're going to ask a question, just put it at the end, please. Make all your statements and then ask a question rather than ask a question and then bloviate. Please do that in the future.
The question is very simple. How can God be sovereign if it's not the case that all events are dependent upon his will?
Yes. And that's what I was trying to explain, and then you cut me off because you wanted to bloviate some more. It is a case that God is sovereign when he permits, in a sense that when people choose to do something.
I didn't ask you about permission.
May I even finish, sir? May I even finish?
Yes or
May
no?
I even finish? God is sovereign in the
I didn't
sense.
Ask you that.
God is sovereign, and you asked me in what sense, and I said God is sovereign in the sense that, and then you cut me off.
John, it was a yes or no
question. Yeah, but you just said permit.
No, it was not a yes or no question.
Why would I give a fuck about God's permission? I'm saying, does God cause all events? Yes or no?
No.
No. So how is he sovereign if all events aren't contingent?
And I was answering that, sir, and I was literally answering. God is sovereign when he permits people to choose to do evil, and he allows it. He doesn't have to allow it. He is sovereign in a sense that he can immediately stop it, strike them dead. He can do a host of things in order to stop it, and that's where he's sovereign.
Did he
Nothing, absolutely, and let me finish, sir. Nothing happens that he does not allow to happen. So in that sense, when God permits agents to freely sin, God is sovereign in a sense, but does he cause the question is does he cause sin? The question is, does he cause sin? No, he does not.
When did I ask you about permission? When did I ask you about permission, you dumb fuck? I'm asking you, did God cause those events to occur?
And I answered 5 times no.
No. Okay, so does God cause the permission of Agent A to do evil?
The answer for that would be yes.
Okay, so then God indirectly causes that agent to do evil.
Indirect causation, what does that even mean?
Well, I think you know exactly what I mean, but that's
No,
not
I
an
do
argument.
not. Could you explain that,
So,
sir?
yeah, no, you do know what I mean by that.
No, I have
Do
no
you know
clue what
do you know the
you're just
difference?
gibberish. That's
So
just gibberish. What does it mean?
You know the
What
difference
does indirect causation mean? Please.
that God causes agent A to do X. Agent A does X, right? Or let's just say like this.
No, then I would
A
reject that. I
causes
would
B,
reject that. I would
A
reject.
causes B, A causes B, B causes C, right? You input the law of transitivity. What follows from that, John?
Yeah, I would reject that. If that is a definition, then no, I would reject that God indirectly causes. You said that the entailments of my statement was indirect causation. Once you explained it, I would say no. That's not what I'm denying your definition. I'm denying indirect causation based upon how you just defined it right now.
So you're denying transitive causation?
No, I am rejecting
That's how
indirect. I
I'm
am denying indirect causation as you define it because God does not cause evil. This is what I'm talking.
I'm saying that given the law of transitivity, it would follow that God causes us to do evil.
The law of transitivity is fine, but you're assuming that God causes evil.
That's how I define. That's how I use the term here. So are you now saying that you deny the law of transitivity, John?
No, I'm saying that the law of transitivity does not apply to the sovereignty of God.
What's the argument for that?
I just explained it to you. It's not the case.
No, you just gave me your belief.
It is not the case that God causes evil. It is not the case that God causes evil and there's some transitivity understood. Nor is there some sort of indirect causation as you claim.
That's just a claim.
I reject.
That's a claim.
That is your claim. That is your claim. That is not my term.
You said that you denied.
Listen, Daz, if you're going to continue to interrupt me, I'm just going to disengage. You know that, right? You know I'm going to disengage if you keep over talking. I'm going to let you talk. Hopefully you'll let me talk.
What is the argument for the law of transitivity not obtaining?
The law of transitivity is irrelevant to the sovereignty of God.
No, it is irrelevant. This is the argument, right? Because if you're construing causation in such a way where A is God and God causes us to do B.
He doesn't cause us to do B. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right,
how many times do I say God doesn't cause us to do B? How many times do I have to tell you? If God does not cause,
I'm claiming otherwise.
Sir, you're interrupting me again. If God does not cause B, then the law of transitivity does not apply.
Yeah, well, that's just, I don't care what.
And therefore, God does not cause
B.
God does not cause B.
That's just your belief, John Lee. What's the argument?
The argument is God does not cause B because it is such
the case.
That's
the conclusion, dumbass. What's the premises for that? What's the premises that
I'm giving. You're over talking me again. I'm literally telling you why God does not cause B.
Why does the fact that I'm over talking you matter?
Because you're asking me a question. You're asking me a question. I'm answering your question, and you cut me off every time you ask a question, and I answer your question every time.
I give you enough space so you could elaborate on what your views are. Now tell me, what's the argument against transitivity?
Yes, God does not cause B, and if it is the case that God does not cause B,
dumbass.
If it is the case that there you go again, you're just cutting me off again. Listen, I'll tell you what. I gave you enough chances, Darth. I gave you enough chances, Darth. I'm just going to disengage at this.
So what John Lee really is saying there, that all he has is a claim, not an argument.
Yeah. We already said we're giving reasons it's worthless, so. You know.
Well, yeah, it's not an evidence-based proposition, so it doesn't matter.
Yes, Christianity is not an evidence proposition, Christian faith.
Faith. There's no worldly fact about the resurrection.
Jmike. No, forget. I never mentioned the resurrection, by the way. What I'm saying is Christian faith, right? Faith is, I accept it as a belief without evidence. So it's either the case. It's either the case that it's either the case that Christianity is a faith, which is a belief without evidence, or it is not the case that Christianity is a belief without evidence. I claim that Christianity is a faith, a being that is a belief without evidence. You might pretend that Christianity is an evidence-based belief. I reject that proposition. However, when it comes to general theism, I will say that the proposition is evidence-based. That is a fundamental difference I was trying to convey to Matt Dillon. Unfortunately, he would not give me the opportunity.
I thought he asked for your evidence for God.
Yes, he asked me evidence for God. When I'm calling, you're going to interrupt. He asked me for evidence for God when I'm a caller who says that evidence for God is worthless to provide.
But you just said general theism isn't evidence-based.
That is correct. But what I'm trying to say is that it is worthless for me, even though theism is evidence-based, to provide evidence to an atheist. For what purpose? So that he becomes a theist and go to hell? That's laughable. That's a worthless endeavor. It's vanity to try to make an atheist a theist when it serves them absolutely no good.
I just think it's weird, like you call on a show and then, why don't you agree with me? It's like, I don't have to tell you. Like, what's he?
It's not the case. No, it's not the case that I don't have to provide you evidence. My argument is such that it is worthless to give you evidence for God. I'm claiming that there is evidence for God. However, what I am telling you is that it's worthless. And so if that is the purpose of my call, it is disingenuous for the host to ask me evidence for God when the caller is saying that it's worthless to provide evidence for God. The proper question for such a host would be, why do you believe it's worthless to provide evidence for God? Not give me evidence for God.
So when someone asks you on the street, like, why are you a Christian? Would you just say it's worthless for me to tell you?
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. I think it's definitely, but those are two separate propositions. Give me evidence for God and why are you a Christian are two separate propositions.
Well, most people make decisions based on evidence, right?
I would disagree. None of the Christian faith represents evidence for God, sir. That is part of my argument.
Yeah, but like the guy was trying to quote you insurance on the call last night, and you were asking for his evidence on why it would be good to switch, right? Like you want him to give you reasons why you should switch your policy, right?
No, actually, that is false. The person's name was Daniel Nero, and he was providing unsolicited information, of which I did not request whatsoever. He wanted to shove it down my throat when I was not even requesting it. That's the difference.
Isn't saying that it's unsolicited, of which you didn't request, redundant?
That's right.
Sue me.
It's unsolicited, of which I did not solicit.
I don't know. Like, I feel like if Darth Dawkins was talking to someone, talking to an atheist, and the atheist said, I just don't have to give you reasons why I'm an atheist. I just think it. I just don't think he would find.
Wait a minute. No, I do give reasons why I'm a Christian. You're listen. I will give you nothing. When you say, why should I believe in God? Can you provide me evidence for God so I can believe? Things like this. I'm not going to give you nothing. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. That's far different than, can you tell me why you believe, personally believe in the God of the Bible to be true? I will certainly spend the time to tell you why I believe the Bible is true and why the God of the Bible exists. Those are two separate propositions.
Why couldn't you just tell Matt on the show why you think the Bible's true?
I was more than, listen. When I called 2 weeks ago, Doc, I told him that I believe that atheists do not exist, and he asked me why. I told him because I believe in the veracity of biblical claims according to Romans 1, and you would think any normal person would then ask, why do you believe the Bible is true, right? But he didn't. He said, are you calling me a liar? And he went on that tangent. So once again, that call, as well as 2 weeks later, the purpose of my call is clear, right? He did not even give me the time of day to give me the reasons why I believe what I do in the purpose of my call. It was two very clear beliefs that I expressed. He never asked me for why I believe what I do, ever.
Well, you don't have reason.
What do you mean I don't have reason?
You're talking about blind faith, right?
No, sir. No, sir. Once again, blind faith.
Faith that has
no,
no
hang
evidence.
on. Not all faiths are blind.
Thomas
Some faiths. I'll tell you, the blind faith is a belief without what? Reason and evidence. No, not just evidence. Reason and evidence, right? One can have a faith that is based upon reason. It just doesn't have evidence. It can be what's called a reasonable faith. No, sir. A reasonable faith and a blind faith, they're not synonymous. A blind faith is without reason and evidence. A reasonable faith, although lacking evidence, is not without justification, is not without reason. That's my point.
What is your reason for believing?
Yeah, like we asked straightforward what the reason would be, and you refused to give it.
What are you talking about? At no point.
No, I'm
I'm
saying today we've asked you, and you've refused to give it.
Yes.
No, I don't mind giving the reason, but listen. The reason for why I believe is a question I'm more than welcome to talk about, but the question. Hang on. The question really is non sequitur to what we're really talking about, which is the call to Magellan. Okay. And in a topic, which the main topic is why I believe in God. Well, certainly, why would I avoid that question? But it is a red herring of why I believe when the topic is actually something else.
Okay, we're just spinning our wheels here. Then we're not going anywhere with this.
I mean, it is my contention that Matt had two simple topics. I gave it to the call screener, right? At no point did he investigate why I believe what I believe that I expressed. I believe that atheists and ex-Christians do not exist was the first week. And I believe that providing evidence for the existence of God is worthless. At no point did he ask me, why do you believe providing evidence for the existence of God is worthless? He did not ask me. He asked me for evidence of God, which is ridiculous for the topic being that, right?
Yeah, what's your reason for believing?
So it's not
Nobody cares about this, John.
Furthermore, it's not the case that I'm claiming there's no evidence. Certainly not. I am claiming there is evidence for theism, right? But it's just worthless to provide.
It's not a proposition that's evidence based at the same time.
No, sir. That's what I'm trying to tell you. My faith in Jesus Christ as that creator God is not evidence based. It is revelatory by the gift of God, right? That's a separate proposition, which I was hoping to explain to Matt Dillahunty, but he never gave me the opportunity.
Okay. How about this? Can you defend the proposition that atheists don't exist?
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago.
Would you mind repeating that?
Well, what I began in the call with Matt Dillahunty was such the case that I believe that atheists and ex-Christians was also the topic that do not exist in objective reality because I believe in the veracity of biblical claims. That was how I began.
Okay, so I mean, basically, you're calling us all liars.
No, that's the angle. That's exactly the angle that Matt Dillahunty went. So are you calling?
You're saying that we've all experienced natural revelation.
No. That is not the case. For example, if I say if there's an atheist who believes that no gods exist, it is not the case that necessarily that he's calling every theist a liar.
Do agnostics exist or no?
Did you understand my point, sir?
So vaguely.
So, well, I'll repeat it. It is not the case necessarily that one person, because they believe gods do not exist, is calling every theist a liar. It is the case that they simply believe that no gods exist. Now, it could be the situation that maybe the theist is deluded, right? That doesn't make being deluded doesn't make someone a liar in the sense of deliberately misrepresenting his theistic position, right?
Wait, but you're saying that atheists don't exist.
That is correct.
But you're saying that there's people that believe God does not exist. You're saying that's not true?
That is conceptually, there is an atheist who believes, or I usually say disbelieve or lacks belief in God. That's the proper way I would say it. Okay. Now, just because now there's also a concept for God, right? A disembodied mind that created the world and this and that, right? Just because those two concepts exist does not necessitate that either concept actually exists in objective reality, right? So if it is the case that a person claims to be God, that doesn't make them God. If the person identifies as God, it does not make him God. Now, an atheist is such who claims to disbelieve or lack belief in God and chooses to identify as an atheist. That doesn't necessarily mean they're actually an atheist. Does that make sense?
How does it not entail that they are atheists? That they exist.
Claims of disbelief or lacking belief is not evidence of disbelief or lack.
We're talking about evidence of atheists existing, being real, a real thing.
My point is this. A person claiming to be an atheist. Are you an atheist?
Yes.
Yes, and I don't believe you're an atheist.
Why
That's
not?
my point.
I'm right here.
Well, that's
I'm
like saying, well,
you're calling me a liar.
I don't believe theism.
No, sir. I'm not calling you a liar.
Hold on, John, shut the fuck up. John, shut the fuck up. I don't believe theists exist because they express their attitude towards me, therefore they don't exist.
Right.
I mean, that's such a fucking stupid
No. Here's the thing. It's not that it's the reason, right? Someone like I could believe Zeus does not exist. Someone else could lack belief in Zeus, right? But it's not the belief, disbelief, or lack of belief that justifies that position. It's the reason or logical basis. Two people could have the exact same belief, but one is justified and one is not.
Okay.
Now. So you agree with that? So in other words,
hold on.
So what I'm trying to say is that even if Jmike doesn't believe that I'm a theist, right? What is the reason or logical basis that he doesn't believe? Now, it is not the case that I don't
you don't have
believe
a reason for you to
Sir, no, absolutely not.
John,
may I respond? Okay, it is not the case that I don't believe your claim because you have failed, neglected, or was unable to provide evidence for your atheism.
I know, right? Romans 1:20. That's what you think.
In fact, that is my contention that it is an informal logical fallacy to base my lack of belief on those things, right?
Okay.
And so it is. So my belief that atheists do not exist is irrespective of your claim, right? It is based upon my belief in the Bible that all men know God exists, and if I believe that proposition, and if I believe that proposition to be true, I necessarily lack the belief in your claim, nothing personal, that you are indeed an atheist. Does that make sense?
John, there's two things you said there, right?
So you are saying it's lying, right?
One is
no, sir. That once again,
it doesn't actually make sense. You're saying you disbelieve it, not that you lack belief.
I really gotta respond to this.
I would say disbelieve and lack belief, Jack.
John, whether or not we have good reasons to disbelieve or not is besides the point of our existence. Whether or not atheists exist or not is besides the point if they have good reason to not believe. And then on the other hand, you're saying we all know God exists and that we're lying. You're calling us liars.
I didn't call you a liar, sir. I don't know how many times I have to say that.
You said all men have experienced natural revelation or whatever.
If it is the case that you're claiming to be claiming to lack belief in God, let's say, right? It can be the case that you're deluded. If you are deluded, I wouldn't call you a liar, right? So all I'm saying, I would not call you a liar.
Let me just ask you directly: how do you interpret Romans 1:20?
Yeah, that all men know that God exists, that God has revealed it to them.
Okay, so let me just ask you: do you take that when that statement is uttered, that all men know?
I just want him to correct his statement.
All men, or all people, however you want to phrase that, know that the proposition is true, that God exists, given that they know it, that it's a justified true belief.
The word knowledge there is not the word gnosis as in terms of the problem with the English language and know, right? There are 7 different words in Greek.
You don't have to go into this.
So,
you just
it is important.
If you agree or not.
So it's not the case that it's a justified true belief in the knowledge that I'm talking about.
Okay, so what do you mean by knowledge then?
Like acquaintance knowledge is not a justified true belief, right? It would be like that. So, but it's still knowledge.
Have the belief that God doesn't exist.
Like for example, if I taste a fruit and I know the taste of the fruit, that is not a justified true belief. That's how. So in other words, what kind of knowledge is it talking about in Romans 1? It's talking about what's called epigenosko. And we can get into that word, but all I'm saying is it's not a justified true belief.
Yeah, that's fine. Then they can have the belief that God does not exist, and it doesn't conflict with that.
I just want to finish up with John here. John, whether or not we have good reasons or we're deluded or not for not believing is besides the point whether or not atheists exist, right? We still exist. Would you agree?
People who claim to disbelieve or lack of belief in God certainly exist. But just because they claim it doesn't necessarily mean that it's true. Certainly,
wait.
There are those who identify as an atheist, right? But any idiot can identify as God. It doesn't make them God just because they identify as one.
Whether we claim something is besides the point, whether we believe it, right?
I don't get it, dude. Like, you'll give a whole different ridiculous Genesis story because you don't want to take the literal interpretation of Genesis, but then you'll be a literalist about this. Like,
are you saying that we claim to not believe? But
I do. Wait a minute. That's a side question. But I do take a literalist interpretation of Genesis 1 just to let.
Are you saying we claim to not believe but are lying?
How many times are you going to ask you that? Are you going to ask me that? I answered you already 4 times.
Not clear.
It is not the case. I'm calling you a liar. It can be easily the case that you're simply deluded.
So we are authentically atheists.
What's the response to what I said?
I just want him to acknowledge this, that we are atheists that exist.
He's not going to acknowledge that. He's already told you back and forth.
Yeah, so I will acknowledge that you are a person who claims to disbelieve or lack belief in God and chooses to identify as an atheist.
Okay, but
so I will acknowledge those two things. It doesn't necessitate that you actually disbelieve or lack belief in God.
Okay,
do
I actually disbelieve in God or not?
I don't believe that for a second.
John, are you going to
respond to me? So you're calling me a liar?
This is my question.
No. If
I tell you I don't believe, if
a person says God exists, and if you say you don't believe me, are you calling me a liar?
Say that again.
If I claim, may I finish the statement, please? If I claim that God does not exist, if I claim that God exists, Rex, and your response is I don't believe you, would I be justified to say that you are accusing me of being a liar?
Which part is he not believing?
So in other words, all theists are liars.
Hold on, John. Hold on.
If you put it that way.
Let me ask the question, because this was a trick question. Which part is he not believing? That you believe in God or that God is real?
The proposition of the claim.
So that would be that God is real, right?
It is either the case that God is real or not. He doesn't believe it is the case that God is real. However, I am the claimant of that proposition.
You believe
right?
it, and that's all.
Shut up. No, I'm making.
He believes you believe it. That's all he has to say to not call you a liar.
No, it is not the claim that I believe God exists. Okay, it is the claim that God exists.
Do atheists believe God doesn't exist?
So the question is, if he doesn't believe the claim that God exists, right? Is he calling me a liar?
No,
he says that yes, he is.
No, he doesn't.
It is not.
John,
two separate claims, 80.
All of this could be skipped if he just answered my question.
80. There are two separate claims. I believe that God exists. That is one claim. And God exists. That is a different claim.
Yeah.
Well, you're not accepting my claim.
So I'm not talking about I believe that God exists, right? It is a claim God exists.
Right.
And when I asked him, he says I don't believe it, right? Is he calling me the liar of the claim that God? He said yes, Haiti. You want to put words in his mouth now? This is the third time you did this today.
Listen,
this is the third time you did this today.
Listen, the atheist says I believe no. Shut up. The atheist says I don't believe in no gods. The theist says I believe there is a God. Neither of them are lying.
Right.
I'll give you another point,
no,
Rex.
You're going to respond to what I said.
No, I'm not going to. And so, Rex, I'm having a conversation with Rex. So, in a sense, Rex, right? If I claim I believe God exists, do you believe me?
I will accept your claim about personal belief.
Right. And so my question is, what justification do you have to believe my claim that I believe God exists?
I just take you at your word. I give you the benefit of the doubt.
You have blind faith in my claim. Would this be correct, sir? You have no reason and no evidence to.
It's reasonable to assume you're telling the truth.
Oh, so in other words, I cannot possibly be lying.
You could be.
I could be. I could be an atheist Pope perpetrating a Christian fraud. Could I not?
Yeah,
and
but
so
why would you assume
reason? No. Once again, being that I provided you absolutely nothing but a claim that I believe that God exists, what would be the evidence for you to believe that I actually believe in God to exist? What would be the reason, sir? What would be the evidence?
Because there's no good reason for you to lie about such a thing.
So once again, do you think that hang on, sir, may I finish? Do you think that no good reason actually serves as reason or evidence?
It's a probabilistic thing, right?
Oh, it's a probabilistic
people don't usually
thing
lie
now.
about such things.
So now let's examine this. So you said it's a probabilistic thing, quote unquote. Do you mean by probabilistic knowledge? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
And so what? So you have
assumption.
You have mathematical variables to provide the statistical probability
I have prior experience to judge future, events.
Oh, so now you're appealing to experience. This is just even getting more. So you have prior experience to believe that I am telling the truth, that I believe in God. Is this correct?
John, it doesn't matter because if
you see where this is going, right, Jmike?
John, let me express something to you. Your attitude towards the proposition is one thing. You could lie. You could state to everybody that you think the proposition is true and be lying and that it's false. But guess what? The content of the proposition remains the same, right? So like the evidence that would be applied or the criticisms and objections would equally remain. It's not going to matter. Like, who fucking cares if you exist to hold the proposition to be true? We're talking about the proposition being true. You could just like die of a heart attack right now or have never existed, and the proposition's content is what's being right. So I don't really see I don't really understand if the objection just applies to the actual content of the argument.
So let's recap.
That's what we're discussing.
Hey, Goofus.
Yeah, man.
You're an atheist.